In this lesson, we'll check out reading from files. In your bin folder inside your project are already some text files. So if you go inside, keep going inside bin, inside debug actually, you'll see some folders: colors.txt, dchero.txt, doginformation.txt, hightemps.txt. There's several files there. Let's first add what we have to have at the top. It's easy to forget until you see the red squiggles. You have to add using system.io at the top. That's very important so we can get the input and output action from files. Here's the Trycatch we saw when we were writing to files, so that's all set up. And we're going to use that to read from files too. We'll see an example of this actually coming into play later. So we'll use a stream reader this time instead of a stream writer, a stream reader, because we're reading from a file, and I'll call it input file. And then we'll make input file equal file.openText. And then in parentheses we put the file name, and it's colors.txt. Our plan is to loop through the entire file and grab each string out of there. The colors are strings. So I'm going to declare a variable and call it string current color. You could call it whatever you want. And then it's going to be whatever color we are currently reading from the file. So it's going to eventually equal each color in the file. So while input file.endofstream, that's a Boolean value for the input file with the stream reader object that lets you know if you're at the end of the file or not. So as long as that is false, we can go ahead and keep looping. It's probably easier to read it with the not symbol in the front to show that it's not true. So if it's not true that we're at the end of the stream, so if not input file.endofstream, then we're going to keep going in the loop. And current color is going to equal input file.readLine. When we were writing to a file, it was write line. Now it's read line. And we're going to show this current color in the message box to let the users know, let us know especially, that we're seeing a color out of the file. And again, this while loop goes as long as we have not reached the end of the stream. Remember to close the file. I'm really good at forgetting to do that. So got to close the file. That impacts the read position of the file. All right, let's check it out. There are the colors, one at a time. You're seeing them right after we read them from the file. We can go check out the file if you haven't already, and you'll see those are the colors, and we see them and we read them in sequential order from the first to the last. If we change the name of the file to a file that doesn't exist, like candy.txt, here's where the Trycatch helps us out. And the exception EX has the error message here that gets displayed. Couldn't find it, and there's the complete file path that it took, and it couldn't find it. I'll adjust that back to the correct file name. Now we're going to read and calculate the average from the high temps file. It's a list of high temperatures. And we're going to have to remember to use .parse, or if we were using an if.tryparse, we're going to use Trycatch because we're going to get string data out of the file. Here's some variables we're going to need to do it. Average high temperature is a double. The current high temp is what's coming out of the file. And then we have to add up all the temperatures and count how many temperatures there are to get the average. So very similar to what we saw in the last one. Stream reader input file equals file.openText with the file name we need. We'll create a while loop, and while it's not true that we've hit the end of the stream, so while not input file.endofstream, keep going. We'll just keep looping. And current high temp is going to equal int.parse input file.readLine. ReadLine returns a string. There it is. You see it's a string. And so we have to parse that into an integer because current high temp is an integer. Sum of temps, we're going to keep a running total here of all the temperatures and keep adding them up. It was initialized at 0 back on line 76, and then we just keep adding these temperatures so we can have a total. And then we have a counter here to keep track of how many temperatures we've had. That's going to allow us to calculate the average at the end. So average high temperature, which is a double, so we're going to need to cast one of these integers as a double. So I'll cast the first one, sum of temps divided by the number of temps. That should give us the average. But we get all those temperatures out of a file. And then we'll display it for users to see. Here it goes. Hopefully. All right, we'll click on that button. And there it is. The high temperature average is 70.2. And I'll show you in the file what all the temperatures are. And if you want to add them all up and divide, you can check the answer out for yourself. But we took all those temperatures and we were able to add them all up, divide by how many there were because we kept track, made it very easy to calculate the high temperatures from a file, the average of the high temperatures from a file. Next, we're going to deal with a list. So we have a list, a hero list. It's a list of strings, and we're going to put in data from two different files, DC Hero and Marvel Hero. So first we'll deal with DC. Here's a Trycatch set up like we've had many times already. We'll have a stream reader called input file. You can call it whatever you want. I'm calling it input file. File.openText, and in parentheses is a string that is the name of the file, the path of the file actually. It defaults to that debug folder inside bin. I'll declare a string, I'll call it current hero, and it's going to equal whatever hero we're on. Here's our while loop. As long as we have not hit the end of the stream, we're going to keep looping. And current hero will equal input file.readline. And we're going to add this to hero list. So hero list.add current hero. And we'll give the users a little confirmation message at the end of all this that all the heroes in that file have been added to the list. And don't forget to close the file. All right. Click the button. They're read into the list, so it says, but it would be nice to check it out. So let's use that button, View the Hero List. We can use a for each loop this time because we've got to get through the entire list, and each index we're at, it doesn't really matter which one we're at. So I'll say string H, we'll make that short for hero, in hero list. And then we'll take our listbox.items.add and we'll add in H because H is going to become every single one of the strings in the hero list. And now we'll be able to see the hero list. So first we'll read dchero.txt and then we'll view the list. We'll take pretty much this same code into the Marvel click button. We just have to change DC to Marvel here in the name of the file, and also when we tell the users that we've successfully added their heroes. Otherwise, it's the same strategy. The same thing goes on. So we'll add everything from dchero.txt. There it is. We'll add everything from marvelhero.txt, and there we go. We're able to take strings out of a file, in this case superheroes, and add them to a list. If we go in a different order, still okay. And if we click one of those buttons again, it'll just keep adding to the list. So all that information came from files, much faster than users entering it in if you've got it stored somewhere. So that's a way that we can take files and take the data and put them into lists. Let's next check out an OpenFileDialog. We saw a Save File dialog before, so we've got to go get one of these from the toolbox. There's an OpenFileDialog down there at the bottom. And over here in the properties, if you want to change it to something else, I'm going to just call it OpenFile. If you want a 3-letter prefix, it would probably be OFD. And another issue is the file name down here. I'm going to leave it for now, even though we should really get rid of it. I want to make a point later on to show you what it looks like if you leave OpenFileDialog 1 there. It's kind of a weird look. We've got a structure ready to go in this program. It's the same dog structure we used in a previous lesson. There's the 4 parts of it. And if you look inside the dog information file, you'll notice that every line is grouped in a set of 4 in sequence to match that structure. That's intentional, and that's going to help us to fill up an array we have here. We can fill up lists, we can fill up arrays. So I'll create a stream reader, and I'll call it input file. And then we'll use an if and force the OpenFileDialog to open. So if OpenFile dot show dialog, that makes the dialog box show up. If the result of that is dialog result dot OK, the user press save. Then input file will equal file.openText, and in parentheses, we're going to get the file name from the OpenFileDialog object. So it's OpenFile.filename. It will come out of that text field or text area in the dialog box, because we're going to get to choose where the file is we want to get. All right, here's a while loop again. I do know how many things I want for the array. I could have used a for loop, but I'm going to use a while loop. As long as we haven't hit the end of the stream. And then I have an index that I'm going to have equals 0. So dogs, because that's an array, index, because it's going to be 0, then 1, then 2, then 3, dot name. Notice how that shows up as part of the structure. Equals input file dot readline. That's a string, so it'll easily fit in there. Same thing for breed. We're going to have an issue with age, though, because we've got to be able to parse that. So I'm now going to put in a try-catch, which I should have done before and didn't, and moved everything in there. Sorry, I went pretty quickly, but we were cutting it close on time on this video. So now we can have dogs index.age and then int parse input file.readline. We got the same problem with this bool. We can't convert a string to bool, but there's a bool.parse. So now we can take all 4 things out of the file and put them into dogs0, then dogs1, then dogs2, then dogs3, because this index is going to keep going up by 1. So the next time through the loop, it'll be dogs1. Then the next time, it'll be dogs2. And we'll keep going until we run out in the file. And I've intentionally set it up to match the array. Let's put a breakpoint in there so we can see what happens. We can go hunt down the file. There it is. And we can look inside when we add to the watch and notice that all those are in there. Just trust me, they're there. I think I cut the video on that. All right, I'm going to have a method here to create a sentence for each dog. So dog D. We can send a structure to a method. I'm just going to call it D. If D.passed obedience, that means the dog has passed obedience school. That means we'll give them a sentence that talks about the dog passing obedience school. And D.name, D.age, D.breed, because D is a dog structure, so it has all those parts. We're going to send dogs here, and then whatever dog shows up, it can use those fields. Again, running short on time in the video, so I'm just going to paste what I did here. I have a string called all the dogs, and then for each dog woof in dogs, woof is going to be every dog inside the dogs array, and I'm going to send it to dog sentence. All the dogs plus equals a new line plus the result of dog sentence for every dog. That new line will bump the information down by 1 line. So that's going to build a gigantic long string that at the end is going to have information about every dog, because every dog is going to get sent to dog sentence. Every item in dogs array gets sent there. There's all the information, all loaded up from a file. And I forgot I edited out when I removed file name from that OpenFileDialog. That's why you didn't see it in there. That was part of a cut that I made. You do want to take that out, or it does look kind of silly in there. But very powerful stuff. All that information was available in a file. We didn't have to type it in ourselves. It could have been saved from a year ago, still available to us now to load into the program.